everybody, welcome back to Law Hero. My name is Jen, and today we're going to be covering something really cool because this can help everybody generally in life, but if you're a law person, and I'm talking about from undergraduate right up to solicitor, barrister, these logical fallacies, they are key to your everyday debate. So what I'm talking about is, like, if you're arguing with somebody, it could be over politics, it could be over law, it could be over anything. If you can spot these logical fallacies in someone's argument and poke holes at it, you can undermine their whole argument. So first and foremost, what is a logical fallacy? A formal fallacy is a breakdown in how you say something. The ideas are somehow sequenced incorrectly. Their form is wrong, rendering the argument as noise and nonsense. And that would be, for example, where there's no logical coherency in your argument. But an informal fallacy is when you make an error in what you were saying and the content of what you were saying. So the ideas might be arranged correctly, but something you said isn't quite right. The content is wrong or off kilter. Okay, so the first one we're going to start with is the ad hominem fallacy. And ad hominem, so hom is a man, and it means against the man. So instead of advancing sound reasoning, ad hominem replaces logic with attack language. So you may commonly know this as an insult, but ad hominem is a little bit more. So all people from Ireland are liars. That's just insulting because there's no fact around it. But ad hominem is when you take a fact and you use it personally against somebody. So for example, McDougall roots for a British football team, which is factually correct. Clearly he is unfit to be a police chief in Ireland. So what you're doing is you're inferring the fact that he supports an English football team, somehow that he is not patriotic and therefore is unfit to serve as a police chief in another country. Okay, the next argument is the straw man argument, and this is when you attack a position the opponent doesn't really hold. So it's like a cheap way to make your position look stronger than it is. So it's like a non-starting argument. Straw man argument, someone attacks a position the opponent doesn't really hold. Instead of contending with the actual argument, he or she attacks the equivalent of a lifeless bundle of straw, an easily defeated effigy, which the opponent never intended upon defending anyway. The senator thinks the environment is such a wreck that no one's car choice or driving habits would make the slightest difference. So this is a straw man fallacy, because you're inferring from their position, we'll say that they're not wholly invested in defending the environment, into how you drive or the car you choose makes no difference. So it's like a sub-argument and it sounds legitimate, but it's actually a completely different argument and one that is very weak. That's why it's called a straw man argument or a straw man fallacy. The next one is appealing to someone's ignorance, or argumentum ad ignorantium. Anytime ignorance is used as a major premise in support of an argument, it's liable to be a fallacious appeal to ignorance. Naturally, we're all ignorant of many things, but it's cheap and manipulative to allow this unfortunate aspect of the human condition to do most of our heavy lifting in an argument. An appeal to ignorance isn't proof of anything except that you don't know something. And this can be used when someone is testifying, we'll say in court, and they have a certain role in a company, and the person who's questioning them asks them something which they couldn't know because of their position, but it's used to make them look weak. So it's basically, you're claiming that because something has not been disproven, that it is the case. So for example, we have no evidence that the Illuminati ever existed. They must have been so clever they destroyed all the evidence. Okay, so there is no proof that they destroyed the evidence, so the easiest thing to do is claim that they have done so. But we're actually ignorant of the fact because nobody even knows. The next one is false dilemma, or black and white fallacy. So the line of reasoning fails by limiting the options to 2 when there are in fact more options to choose from, black and white, either or. Sometimes the choices are between one thing, the other thing, or both things together. They don't exclude each other. Sometimes there is a whole range of options. So what you're basically trying to do is reduce choice fatigue here, and you're basically backing someone against the wall. So you're like, death penalty or not, and you're kind of excluding all the nuances which come with culpability and crime and punishment. So dilemma-based arguments are only fallacious when, in fact, there are more than the stated options. And again, it's really to get people to choose and show their hand. So for example, either we go to war or we appear weak. It's just black and white. The next one is the slippery slope fallacy. So they say it suggests that unlikely or ridiculous outcomes are likely when there's just not enough evidence to think so. Let me give you an example. But everyone's going to the party. Well, if everyone was jumping off the cliff, would you jump off the cliff? That's the slippery slope fallacy. It's a massive leap, and it's usually used when you're a teenager with your parents because they know you can't use logic. But if you were always very clever as a teenager, you would just go, that makes no sense, that's not logical. If you were one of those teenagers, go you. Okay, next one, the circular argument, or the petitio principii. When a person's argument is just repeating what they already assumed beforehand, it's not arriving at any new conclusion. And we call this a circular argument. So for example, chicken and egg, or the Bible is true, it says so in the Bible. That's a circular argument. I use this all the time when I'm trying to poke hole at someone's argument. Another way to explain circular arguments is that they start where they finish and finish where they started. So if you can identify this, that is a circular argument. Hasty generalization. Oh, come on, we're all very exposed to this, I think, in the media. Hasty generalization may be the most common logical fallacy because there's no single agreed upon measure for sufficient evidence. For example, all Chinese people are good at maths. It's kind of like it's a generalization. It's like stereotyping. You're making an assumption. It's all of that kind of thing. And it's usually when people say the words all or all the time or usually, that kind of thing. So, you know, just be careful of generalizations. For example, people nowadays only vote with their emotions instead of their brains. That would be a generalization. Red herring fallacy, ignoratio elenchi. This is a distraction from the argument, typically with some sentiment that seems to be relevant but isn't really on topic. This tactic is common when someone doesn't like the current topic and wants to detour into something else. Actually, and the other thing as well was this article explained where the red herring came from. So it refers to a kippered herring, which was reddish brown in colour and quite pungent. And according to legend, this aroma was so strong and delectable to dogs that it served as a good training device for testing how well a hunting dog could track a scent without getting distracted. Dogs aren't generally used for hunting fish, so a red herring is a distraction from what he's supposed to be hunting. Mind blown! So, which one of these is the red herring fallacy? And like, red herrings come up in law all the time, for example. Okay, so it is too cookie. And it means you too. So, you can use it to deflect criticism away from yourself by accusing the other person of the same problem or something comparable. Oh, don't you drink as well? Like, you're getting on to me about my weight, but like, you drink, you smoke. That's too cookie. Causal fallacy is any logical breakdown when identifying a cause. You can think of the causal fallacy as a parent category for several different fallacies of unproven causes. Yesterday, I walked under a ladder with an open umbrella indoors while spilling salt in front of a black cat. So this is, for example, when you're like, I saw 2 magpies, so that's why I had a lucky day, or I found a coin and that's why I had a lucky day. It's a bit like the Pygmalion effect. It's because like you believe it to be so, so it becomes so. The fallacy of sunk costs. the best way to explain this is the Concord, because they invested, Britain and France invested so much in the Concord that they couldn't pull out. And that's like usually what happens with people in toxic relationships. They've invested so much in it, they find it hard to walk away. That's the fallacy of sunken costs. Oh, they give the example. I've been in this relationship which isn't working anymore. No marriage, no kids, no steady job, but I've been with him for 7 years, so I should stay with him. Okay, we're nearly there. So appeal to authority. This is when you misuse an authority. So for example, George Clooney drinks Nespresso, so everybody should drink Nespresso. Or I'm the smartest because my mother said so. It's like you're appealing to authority, but it's like that authority is your authority, not mine. Equivocation or ambiguity. When a word, phrase, or sentence is used deliberately to confuse, deceive, or mislead by sounding like it's saying one thing but actually meaning something else. Equivocation comes from the roots of the words equal and voice and refers to two voices. Something equivocal. When I think of equivocation, I always think of Macbeth. So it could be like a play on words. Okay, so for example, when you say, when you replace the word lying with creative license, or criminal background with my youthful indiscretions, or fired from my job with taking early retirement. They're all examples of equivocation. Appealing to pity, and actually this is used in victim mentality. It's when you're looking for compassion. So it's like you stole from a shop and you're like, yeah, but I was abused as a child. It's like, okay, they're two separate things. You're after stealing somebody else's property which wasn't yours, which is criminal offense, and also you were abused as a child. That may have motivated you because you feel some kind of way. You feel like you're lacking, or the abuse has meant that you're not able to economically look after yourself, so that was a motivator for you to steal. The causation is still far out, but you're using some kind of traumatic event to excuse or justify the mistake you've just made. That is appeal to pity. Lots of people do that in arguments. Oh my God, think of like, you know, people who cheat in relationships. They're like, yeah, I cheated because she pushed me away, you know, this kind of thing. That's an appeal to pity. Okay, the last one is the bandwagon fallacy, and we've seen this a lot during COVID. So it assumes that something is true because everybody else agrees with it. It's basically what the popular opinion is. And let's see. So tactic is used among advertisers. If you want to be like Michael Jordan, you better eat Wheaties. Drink Gatorade because that's what all the professional athletes do to stay hydrated. McDonald's has served over 99 billion people, so you should let them serve you too. They're pretty vanilla, but these are all kind of American examples. So yeah, I hope I've entertained you a little bit and enlightened you as to the fallacies that people use in arguments. Now that I've revealed them to you, you might start seeing them when you're arguing with your other half, or with your sister or your brother or your parents, or even in work. It's good to know them outside of the workplace, but equally if you get into litigation, or if you're involved in some negotiation, it's always good to have these in your head and be able to spot them. A little bit like when you're making decisions that you know what cognitive bias is, because when you have a framework around which you make decisions and which you argue, it's much clearer when there's a process. When you're just reacting, there's much more scope for you to generalize, make assumptions about people, really insult people because of the things you were taught growing up, because of your beliefs that came from your environment. So if you can strip all of that back and understand that you're a creature of your environment, and that if you learn how to think clearly and how to disassemble other people's arguments, that you can much more quickly reach a resolution. I think it's better for everybody. So yeah, hope to see you in the next one, and thank you for staying tuned.